Hello, my ladies with big hearts, big brains, and big dreams. Today I'm talking about something I rarely ever hear anyone talk about, which is the fact that having high IQ is amazing, but it also has its own set of unique challenges that can make life actually very, very stressful. And what I've noticed is that a lot of women with high IQ tend to be so high achieving and high functioning that nobody around them realizes that they are having these specific types of struggles, and therefore women don't get the kind of support that they need. And this is something I've been observing for over 3 years now, guiding the most brilliant women from around the world. And what I've noticed is that these women have unique brains. These brains aren't like other brains, and I've decided to give it a name. I call these unique brains that these high achieving women have Ferrari brains. And the reason why I do that is because it reminds me very much of a Ferrari or any kind of luxury sports car. There's high performance, high power, high speed, high potential. There's a wow factor. However, I don't have a Ferrari, but I know that when you do have a luxury sports car, there's a special maintenance that's required. So, for example, you wouldn't maintain a Ferrari the same way you would a Honda. You know what I'm saying? And no hate on Hondas. I've been driving my CRV since 2019 and I love it. But if I had a Ferrari, there would definitely be special maintenance that I need to do because even though the Ferrari is powerful, things can go wrong and things can escalate very quickly. Things can spin out of control. And that is what I see happening with women who have these powerful, potent Ferrari brains. Even though they can use those brains to do amazing things, solve complex problems, reach their goals, and they're just generally fascinating and amazing, those same brains can actually turn against them. Precisely because, like I said, we don't talk about the challenges that women with high IQ have, and therefore we don't give women the right support. AKA, we don't teach women, first of all, that they have unique brains, let alone how they can maintain and manage those special brains. Okay, before I tell you about these challenges so you can see whether you resonate with these, let's first make sure that you do, in fact, have a Ferrari brain. I'm pulling up my phone, and these are the notes I've taken by observing hundreds of women from around the world. This is what I've noticed are the common characteristics of these women that I say have this Ferrari brain. So let's begin. So the first sign is that your mind goes a million miles a minute. Okay, you're always 3 steps ahead of everyone. You're just thinking really, really fast, lightning speed. Number two, you think fast and deep. There's also a depth to your thought, and you probably have incredible pattern recognition as well as organizational skills. Three, you're super creative and you have a really rich inner world, really vivid imagination, creativity, as well as endless curiosity. That part is super, super key for a Ferrari brain, this curiosity. And with that comes this quest for learning, quest for growth, also maybe sometimes an obsession with efficiency, as well as just constantly wanting to improve everything, wanting to improve yourself, wanting to improve everything at work, wanting to improve other people. There is that curiosity is coupled with this quest to make things better, okay? Because you see how they can be better. You probably were the gifted kid growing up, right? Or at least you were a teacher's pet, and now you're probably anxious, but we'll get to the challenges soon. Another sign of a Ferrari brain is that you aren't just logical. You don't just have this powerful, logical, practical, analytical brain, but you also have a beautiful, big heart, and you have a lot of empathy. So the women that I work with, they're not just excelling in their work, they also have really good people skills and they really care about people and relationships, etc. And then finally, this one is key. Women with Ferrari brain have this insatiable hunger for more. Remember what I said about the curiosity and the growth, but there's also this inner hunger for more success, more happiness, more love, better health, more fun, even just more of everything. I sort of see Ferrari brains as these women who see life as a juicy lemon, and we just want to squeeze that lemon and get the most out of life. Okay. So let me know in the comments if you have a Ferrari brain And now let's jump over to some of the challenges. I'm going to share with you the 7 key challenges that these Ferrari brains have. You might have them all, you might have some of them, but the common thread between all of them is that these challenges actually sabotage this high achieving woman's potential for success, as well as her well-being. And that's a key part because a lot of women with Ferrari brains believe they have to suffer tremendously. And a lot of this mental anguish, emotional roller coaster is a part of being a successful woman, but it is not. And actually, when you learn how to manage your Ferrari brain, which I'll tell you a little bit about towards the end, you'll learn that you can actually be more successful and feel better at the same time. All right, so let's jump in. Okay, so challenge number 1, my brain never shuts up. Okay, I'm talking about that mental chaos that nobody sees on the outside because it's happening obviously on the inside. So here are some signs of that. So you might be obsessively worrying, ruminating, overthinking. You might be bumping into analysis paralysis. And a key thing about this is that you're always thinking about the past or worrying about the future. And so this is why a lot of women with high IQ can't really be in that present moment. And this is very stressful. Along with that is this feeling about always bracing for something bad to happen, for the other shoe to drop. There's this hyper vigilance and like I said, not being able to be in the present moment and relax. And then finally, because there's so much mental activity going on here, you're often living up here and completely disconnected from your body. And there's a lot of things that come with this, like not noticing hunger cues, not eating, not feeling your emotions, numbing out, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So this is challenge number 1 related to that excessive mental activity. Challenge number 2, oh my gosh. This one was the bane of my existence for most of my life. And this is, I have to be the best or I'm nothing. I'm talking about that relentless pressure to perform, prove, and be perfect. Okay. So this is when you're always having to be achieving. And even when you achieve something, you don't even pause to celebrate or even acknowledge it. You just move on to the next goal. Let me know if that resonates with you. So within this challenge, we have crippling perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and just completely unrealistic standards, right? Because there's such a high standard for this perfection and proving yourself that, yeah, you walk around with these completely unrealistic standards that you would never expect for someone else, but for you, they're normal. And in fact, you don't even see them as being high. And as a result of all this, you're never feeling like you've done enough. You don't feel like you are enough. You don't feel like you've achieved enough. So there is this deep void in you caused by your brain where you're trying to fill it and you're filling it with more achievements, but more achievements can never fill that void. Another sign within this one is if you're not instantly good at something, you want to quit, right? Because, like I said, those high standards, you expect yourself to be perfect in anything that you do, anything that you try, even if it's something like a hobby. And then finally, there is this addiction to external validation. Okay, that need to prove yourself, you basically are living off of external validation. And what happens over time is you lose that internal validation. And so, like a rat in a research study, you just become addicted to that substance and dependent on it. And what happens is, as a result, you're always feeling like a perpetual failure because, like I said, there's no amount of external validation, there's no amount of achievements that can fill that void. Okay, here's a third challenge why having high IQ is challenging and stressful. This one is called I'm exhausted, but I can't stop. This is burnout disguised as productivity. And I see so many women doing this. They're overworked, exhausted, and then they're gaslighting themselves that they're fine, right? And one of the biggest signs of this third challenge is this sense of urgency. Everything that you're doing fast. You're walking fast, you're eating fast, you're talking fast, and nothing is fast enough for you. And every time you sit down to work, you think you should have done this yesterday. And what's really hard about this one is, like I said in the previous one, you really tie your worth in For this one, to productivity. So we're tying our worth to external validation, to achievements, as well as our productivity. So because we tie our worth to our productivity, we can control our productivity. And that's what happens. That's what causes that overdrive, that flight response, working more, doing more, committing to more, over delivering, over giving. It's exhausting. And because you're so tied to that productivity, you struggle to relax. And even if you do try to relax, you feel so guilty, so anxious that you would rather just continue working. Or my favorite, you ask, how can I relax and make it productive? And this last one really breaks my heart because this is what I did most of my life. When you do have those achievements, you don't feel proud of yourself. So there's none of that love and validation, acceptance, celebration pouring back into yourself for all this hamster wheel productivity that you're on. The fourth challenge, I take on way too much and can't let go of control. This is what I call superwoman syndrome. You're superwoman in every part of your life. Like I said, always taking on more, raising your hand for everything at work, doing the most for your friends. And yeah, you just think you're superhuman. You're also biting off more than you can chew in your personal goals. Like I said, those unrealistic standards. And there's a really deep sense of control. And so you're micromanaging yourself. You probably have a to-do list for your to-do list. You might be micromanaging your friends and family, your lover, people at work. And it may look like for me, planning vacations where you start at 6 a.m. and don't stop until 11 p.m. And if anyone is late for 1 second, you get really angry. There's like this controlling aspect because, like I said, you want to squeeze life like a lemon, but with your Ferrari brain, it can go into this overdrive and it really stresses you out. And actually, it also stresses the people around you out as well. And this superwoman syndrome is particularly seen at work, where, like I said, you will feel overly responsible for everything. You'll be the miracle worker, you'll be a workhorse, you'll be a worker bee, and not a queen bee. And a big part of your need for control also prevents you from delegating. There's also a hyper independence. So you're less likely to delegate at work, but you're also less likely to ask for help, ask for support, or even take it or receive it when it is actually given to you, whether it's at work or in your personal life. Moving on to the fifth challenge. I'm always destroying myself with negative self-talk. Spoiler alert, that does not have to be the case. Okay, I thought the negative self-talk, the self-judgment, the self-criticism, the self-bashing, the self-hate, I thought that was just what everyone had in their minds. I also thought that the negative self-talk was helping me. I thought it was pushing me towards my goals, towards having everything that I wanted. And I learned that's not true. In fact, it was stressing me out and actually limiting my success and slowing me down. And it wasn't until I changed all of that that I realized that I can be so much more successful and happier if I'm not constantly bashing myself with that inner chatter. And so what happens is typically these women with these fire brains have so much grace and compassion for other people. Like I said, these are empathetic women. However, they are unable to give themselves that same compassion, empathy, and grace. And then finally, even though you're objectively crushing it, you don't feel that way. You don't feel that way because the facts and reality is clouded by this negative self-talk, this awful voice that is downplaying your accomplishments and exaggerating any shortcomings. Okay, before I share the last two, which are related to emotions and your physical health, I just want to pause here because I don't want this to sound like a long tirade of negativity. I'm sharing this just to illuminate what the Ferrari brain can do and also normalize this experience because as you've noticed, so much of these challenges, so much of this stress is internal, it's in the mind, it's unseen. And so a lot of women are walking around thinking they're the only ones that feel this way, or worse, if I feel this imposter syndrome, if I feel this compulsion to work, that means it's because I am actually a failure. It's because I'm not good enough. It's blah, 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 blah. This can go on and on and on. And so I want to normalize these symptoms and challenges of having high IQ for high achieving women. And I also want to assure you that there is a way to manage our brains. I have been working on my brain for a while now, and I have so much compassion for these challenges and I can speak on them because I've been there, but that is no longer my reality. I'm not saying my brain doesn't ever spin out, but now my spin outs are less frequent, less intense, and also last for a lesser time. And most importantly, I now have the tools to manage my brain so it doesn't get out of control. Okay, challenge five, like I said, it's related with emotions. And something that shocked me to hear, but not really, is the fact that high IQ is actually correlated with higher risk of anxiety and depression. And this is what I find in my high achieving women is oftentimes they're spinning their wheels, wasting so much time in a spiral, being triggered on this emotional roller coaster. And not only do they get triggered and it causes emotional chaos, but then they spend so much time trying to get over it. And without the proper tools to do that, it gets very messy and actually prolongs that pain. So here are some signs from the emotional challenge, which are you're probably sensitive. In general, you're probably sensitive to rejection, sensitive to criticism, sensitive to feedback, and you probably tend to take things personally. And as I mentioned with the spiraling, like one bad email can take you out, right? For me, this happened when I was still working in the corporate world as an executive. One email could take out my whole day, for example, and with that, my whole evening. And there's also oftentimes this kind of moodiness, right? Because our mood is affected by our ability to control, our ability to be productive. Are we getting the external validation? So there's a lot of ups and downs when we have these Ferrari brains, and it really does feel like this roller coaster. And this next symptom is very interesting for Ferrari brained women. Even though we look like alphas, we feel like alphas, there's actually a lot of self-doubt. There's actually a lot of low self-confidence that most people don't see or that we're even scared to show because we're so worried that if people saw how much we second guess ourselves, that they would think that we're not as talented, not as intelligent, not as competent. And as I mentioned in the first challenge, there is that tendency to ruminate, overthink, get into analysis paralysis. So there's a lot of opportunity to overthink about ourselves and to second guess ourselves and doubt ourselves. And this makes our confidence plummet. And this is emotional anguish. And then finally, I want to talk about what we do when we're in this emotional roller coaster. We try to numb ourselves, right? So we might do this through doom scrolling. We might do this through snacking. There's all these different ways that we might try to distract ourselves from this brain that's in overdrive and from these emotions that feel so triggering. And what I found is a lot of high achieving women actually have a dopamine addiction in order to regulate and numb ourselves because we're addicted to these short term dopamine spikes, these kind of fast food kind of satisfaction, because we're not prioritizing long term satisfaction, long term happiness, joy, aka a gourmet meal. So, because we're not prioritizing that, because we think, no, I need to prioritize my goals, my productivity, over delivering, all these things, we are missing that joy. We are missing that fulfillment, that satisfaction. So we chase dopamine, which is a short term fast food version that will actually never satisfy us, which is why we are on that hamster wheel of doom scrolling, snacking, rotting. It never actually satisfies us. In order to be truly satisfied as a woman with a big heart, big brain, big dreams, we have to prioritize our joy. And then finally, this last challenge, I'm going to give a little disclaimer. I am not a doctor or a medical professional. These are just things I've observed in my clients as well as in my own journey. And that is, I have noticed there's specific physical symptoms associated with having this high-powered brain and being on this hamster wheel of hustle culture. Migraines, headaches. This used to be huge for me. I would get so riled up and so stressed out and so emotionally triggered at work sometimes, even over work I was passionate about, that I would get a debilitating migraine sometimes for 3 days in a row. I no longer take migraine medication, and that is a thing of the past, and I am so grateful. unexplainable stomach pains, right? Because, like I said, the stress, that anxiety, we got the headache girls, we got the stomach ache girls. Let me know which one you are. Trouble falling or staying asleep. This is a huge one. So, we have women that are so wired all day long because these Ferrari brains are pumping adrenaline, pumping cortisol, that then it's really hard to fall asleep or stay asleep. Those hormones, melatonin, all of those things are just so dysregulated that your sleep is the first thing to go. And then that just has a bad impact on everything in your life. And then finally, this one you might not necessarily correlate between high IQ, but for me, it's debilitating period pain or any kind of period issues, hormonal imbalance, PMS, PMDD. I have found the prevalence of this among my high achieving Ferrari brained women is crazy high. I myself had PCOS for years in the peak of my overdrive, overworking, running a million miles a minute inside my brain, trying to be successful. It literally made me sick. There you have it. Those are the challenges I've observed in my Ferrari brained, high IQ, big hearted ladies. I want to hear from you. Which of these challenges are the most prominent or most difficult for you? Which of these would you love to dissolve? And how would that change your life? And if you're at the point in your life where you are like, these challenges are just too much, I now see how they are stopping me from being more successful and they're destroying my physical health, mental health, my happiness in the process. And you want to learn how to manage your beautiful, unique Ferrari brain, I invite you to check out my program, Positive Intelligence with Anna, the same program I used in 2021 that absolutely changed my life and rewired my brain away from these patterns and gave me the tools so that when my brain wants to do those old things, I know exactly how to nip that in the bud and maintain my peace of mind, maintain my laser focus, and I'm able to achieve 10 times more and feel 10 times better because ultimately that is what I want for my brilliant ladies. Yes, I want you to reach your pinnacle of success. But success is not success if you feel like shit the whole way and then you get there and you are broken or like I was completely sick, no self-confidence. Quite frankly, I didn't even know who I was at that by the end of it, nor did I know what even brought me joy. It was very, very sad, and that is not what I want for you. If you would like more information about this program, comment Ferrari Brain below and I will send you the link. We have one cohort starting up very soon on July 11th, 2025, but spots are filling up really fast for that one. So if you missed that one or you're seeing this at a later time, you can still comment Ferrari Brain and I'll send you the link to the waitlist instead. So you'll be notified the next time I open doors for Positive Intelligence with Anna. Anyway, my beautiful babes, I hope you have a wonderful rest of day and I'll see you in the next one.